Hello everyone, I welcome you all to my YouTube channel Trinity English Joseph. So as a part of English, today we are going to learn one of the most important topics, that is punctuation. Now let us look at what is punctuation, why is punctuation so important, what are the different kinds of punctuation and where are they used. So first let us look at the punctuation. The punctuation refers to the marks used in writing that help readers understand what they are reading. So, punctuation generally refers to the understanding of the reading. When the reader reads it, he understands what exactly the writer means to convey it. And next, sometimes words alone are not enough to convey a writer's message clearly. Generally, when you just take the words and plainly you keep using all the words, and then we don't understand the exact meaning of it. So, when you start writing the words, you can't understand the meaning of it clearly. So, what we need to do is, so we have to punctuate the words properly so that we get the exact meaning of it. Now, if you just look at, they need a little help from punctuation marks to illustrate relationships between words, pauses, or even emotions. So now here we need punctuation marks to illustrate, to show, or to demonstrate relationships between the words and pauses and even emotions. So emotions like exclamations, interrogatives, and so many other things. And then here, if you see, punctuation can also enable the writer to control whether text is read quickly or slowly. Now, when you read it, so it is understood to read whether quickly or slowly. If you put a full stop, it does mean that you have to complete the sentence and you have to slow down completely. If you put a comma, give a light pause and then continue it. So in that way, we will have a different ways of doing the things. And next, to understand the meaning exactly without missing anything. So the punctuation marks are to understand the exact meaning of the words which are there or the sentences which are there. So wrong usage of punctuation marks leads to the misunderstanding of the language. So here, when we use the punctuation marks, so it means the meaning of it exactly. So for example, let's eat grandpa and let's eat grandpa, there's a difference. So the words are same. By the way, how you put the punctuation marks, that makes the difference. Stop not, hang him. Stop not, hang him, and stop not hang him. So there is a difference between both. The words are same, but the way how you put the punctuation is different. Stop, comma, not hang him, or if not, stop not, comma, hang him. So thus the words are same, but the punctuation mark differs, so the total meaning also differs. So students, even elders, I request you all, when you use the language, put the proper punctuation marks. Now, let us look at the types of punctuation marks. Friends, if you just look at here, we have already seen about the introduction of the punctuation. And now, let us look at the kinds of punctuation. How many kinds of punctuation do we have? So, if you just look at, we have three kinds of punctuation that we can see here. So that is, first one is end punctuation or sentence endings. The second one is the internal punctuation, and the third one is word punctuation. So friends, now let us look at what are these end punctuation or sentence endings. So any sentence in English ends with any one of these. First one is full stop or period, and the second one is question mark, and the third one is exclamation mark. So these are the end punctuation or sentence endings. And the second one is internal punctuation. So internal punctuation is the one which is in between the sentences. And if you look at, we have a different kinds of internal punctuation. And the first one is comma. Second one is quotation marks or inverted commas, we call them as. And the third one is semicolon. Fourth one is colon. And fifth one is ellipsis. And friends, if you just look at here, the third one is word punctuation. And in the word punctuation, if you see, the first one is apostrophe, and the second one is hyphen, and the third one is capital letters. So friends, now let us look at the entire details, going into each one in detail. So now let us go into the each punctuation in detail. If you just look at, now let us deal about the end punctuation or sentence endings. As I already told you, these punctuation marks generally come at the end of a sentence. So any one of these punctuation marks would be at the end of the sentence. And now if you just look at main important punctuation mark that we get in the sentences are full stop or period. Here, if you just look at, this is what the dot with which we just indicate or identify. So here, if you just look at the main importance of this full stop or the period is that it indicates the most extended pause. So it generally talks about the most extended pause, and we completely stop the sentence there when you just speak about. And if you just look at the uses of this full stop, so first we just use at the end of declarative and imperative sentences. So declarative sentences are also known as assertive sentences, and assertive sentences are the ones where we use for ordinary sentences, for statements, for information, and so many other ordinary sentences. And almost 80 to 90% of the sentences that we use in our day-to-day life are these declarative or assertive sentences. And if you just look at the imperative sentences are used for orders or commands, requests, suggestions, entreaties, and so many other things. So now if you just look at, so examples, I am a teacher, so that is a declarative sentence. Don't disturb my class, so that is a command, so which is an imperative sentence. If you just look at the second use of it, so after most abbreviations and initials, so that is what we generally use it. Abbreviations are the ones, when you just look at MA, Master of Arts, when you look at BSc, Bachelor of Science, when you look at AM, anti-meridian, so these are some of the abbreviations that we generally get in our day-to-day life. So next, the third use here is to separate hour from minute and date from month and year. So when you separate the time, especially the time limit, then we would be using the full stop. The class begins at 7:45 a.m. So between 7 and 45 you have full stop, and then between A and after A and M also we have a full stop. So at the same time you have another one more example. Srenita was born on 28 November 2011. So here this is also another one more example where we use the full stops. Now further we will see where we don't use the full stop. Up to now we have seen where we have used the full stop, and now we will see where we don't use the full stop. Friends, now if you just look at here, let us look at the omission where we don't use the full stop. The first one is in acronyms. Acronyms means abbreviations pronounced as a complete word or as complete words, like NATO or UNESCO or VAT. So these are the words which are pronounced as a word. So like M, A, all such kind of things. Instead of that, we directly pronounce as a one unit of word. So in that case, though it is like an abbreviation, it still doesn't use the full stop. And the second one is when the capital letter in the abbreviation doesn't stand for a complete word. So when you take, friends, if you just look at here, TV means television. In the same way, if you just look at the word TB, that is tuberculosis. In that way, so we don't use the words completely. We only use the abbreviations of it. In that case, we don't use the full stop. And the third one is in newspaper headlines. When you just look at the newspaper headlines, if you read the newspaper, in the newspaper headlines, we just don't see the full stops here. And if you see here, art is more than unbroken lines. And then heat wave condition persists until May. In that way, we don't use the full stop at the end. Students, if you just look at the second sentence ending or end punctuation is question mark. It can also be called as interrogative mark. And here, if you just look at, basically the question mark itself indicates that it is used for questions. And here, if you just look at the first use is used at the end of interrogative sentences and the question tags. So in the interrogative sentences, we have 4 types of interrogatives. So in that we see here, first one is yes or no type questions, and the second one is WH questions, and the third one is question tags. So for all these questions, we use the question mark. And then next, after elliptical questions. Elliptical questions are the ones if you want to make something drive home when you don't expect an answer, that is called a elliptical question. Doing well when you say, or can't you do anything right? So that's what we just generally speak about. So these are the different other things that we have it. And then students, we have one omission here where we don't use the question mark. So that is the question mark is not used after an indirect question. So when you have an indirect speech here, when you say indirect question, in the indirect speech we don't use the question at all. The principal asked me where I had gone. So that is an indirect question or indirect speech. In that case, we don't use the question. Hello students, now if you just look at the sentence ending, the third one is exclamation mark. You can see the exclamation mark here. And here, let us look at the uses of the exclamation mark. The moment when you just look at the exclamation mark, it focuses upon the extra human feelings. Whatever we have extra other than the ordinary feelings, we get it under the exclamations. The first use is after an emotional expression of joy, sorrow, surprise, shock, anger. So whatever it may be, the extreme feelings of the human beings, they are expressed under this. And when you want to express the extra human feelings or emotions, we use the exclamation mark. And if you just look at this particular sentence, you can see how fabulous the movie is. So here we can just see the exclamation mark. And then if you just see the second use, after an interjection or one word exclamation. So if you can see after an interjection, you can see the interjection here. So almost equal to the exclamations. And if you see here, pity, she lost her father. Hurrah, we won the match. So in these ones we can see after the interjection the exclamation mark. And then when you go to the third use, we see after an imperative sentence when it is charged with a strong feeling. When we just look at the strong feeling, so in the imperative sentence also we can still use the exclamation mark. When you speak about a strong command, we use this particular exclamation mark. Shut up, go and bring your notebook. So generally when you just threaten the students, we generally use this. Get lost, I need no explanation. So boss, sometimes when the subordinates give the explanation, they say, get lost, I need no explanation. So these are all the sentence endings, and we will be further looking into the next kind of punctuation.